If money is supposed to measure value, then Venezuela is what happens when value collapses. Once one of the richest countries in Latin America, Venezuela today is a warning written in empty shelves, worthless banknotes, and millions of people who had to leave everything behind. This is not just a story about inflation. This is a story about power, oil, decisions, and consequences. Venezuela's story begins with oil. Beneath its soil lies the largest proven oil reserves on Earth. For decades, this black gold turned Venezuela into a symbol of prosperity in the 1950s and 60s. Caracas looked like a modern American city. Money flowed in, jobs were plentiful. The government didn't need high taxes, oil paid for everything. But oil also planted the seed of future collapse. When a country depends almost entirely on one resource, it becomes fragile. Venezuela built its entire economy around oil exports. Agriculture weakened. Manufacturing declined. Imports replaced local production. As long as oil prices stayed high, the system looked stable. But stability built on one pillar is an illusion. In 1999, Hugo Chavez came to power. He promised justice, equality, and an end to corruption. His message resonated with millions who felt excluded from Venezuela's oil wealth. Chavez used oil money to fund massive social programs, free healthcare, education, subsidized food, and housing. At first, it worked. Poverty fell. Consumption rose. The government spent heavily, confident that oil revenues would never stop. When oil prices surged in the 2000s, Venezuela felt unstoppable. But spending replaced planning. Instead of saving oil profits or diversifying the economy, the government expanded control. Industries were nationalized. Price controls were imposed. Private companies were pushed out. The state became the center of everything. And when the state controls prices, reality eventually pushes back. Price controls were meant to make life affordable. Instead, they destroyed production. When the government fixed prices below production costs, companies stopped producing. Farmers abandoned fields. Factories shut down. Shelves emptied. To fill the gap, Venezuela imported goods using oil dollars. But imports require foreign currency, and foreign currency depends on exports. When oil prices began to fall after 2014, the entire system cracked, with fewer dollars coming in. The government faced a choice: cut spending or print money. It chose the printer. The central bank began creating money to pay salaries, subsidies, and debts. More bolivars flooded the economy, but goods did not increase. The result was inevitable. Inflation exploded. Then hyperinflation arrived. Prices didn't rise yearly, or monthly, or daily, they rose hourly. A salary earned in the morning could be worthless by evening. Banknotes lost meaning. People carried stacks of cash just to buy bread. Money stopped being money. As inflation spiraled, trust vanished. People rushed to spend cash immediately, knowing it would lose value. Savings were destroyed. Pensions became meaningless. The middle class collapsed almost overnight. The government responded by printing even more money. Zeros were removed from the currency. New bills were introduced. Names were changed. But changing the label doesn't change reality. By 2018, inflation reached millions of percent. Venezuela entered one of the worst hyperinflation crises in modern history outside of war. While money collapsed, oil production collapsed too. Mismanagement, corruption, and lack of investment crippled the state oil company. Skilled workers left. Equipment failed. Output fell dramatically. Sanctions later worsened the situation, cutting Venezuela off from global financial systems and limiting oil exports. Whether sanctions were the cause or the accelerator remains debated. But the economy was already broken. With less oil, there were fewer dollars. With fewer dollars, imports collapsed, and shortages became permanent. Food became scarce. Medicine disappeared. Hospitals lacked electricity, supplies, and staff. Diseases once eradicated returned. Malnutrition spread, especially among children. People adapted in desperate ways, bartering goods, weighing food on jewelry scales, crossing borders to buy basic items. Millions chose the hardest option. They left. Venezuela's economic collapse triggered one of the largest migrations in human history. Over 7 million people fled the country, walking across borders with nothing but bags and memories. Doctors became taxi drivers abroad. Engineers became laborers. Entire families were split by borders and poverty. This was not just an economic crisis. It was a social collapse. Today, Venezuela survives in fragments. The economy has partially dollarized not by policy, but by necessity. U.S. dollars are used in daily life. Inequality has deepened. Those with access to dollars survive. Those without remain trapped. Hyperinflation has slowed, but the damage remains. Trust in institutions is shattered. Trust in money is gone. Venezuela is not just a failed economy. It is a lesson about dependence on one resource, a lesson about uncontrolled government spending, a lesson about printing money without production, a lesson about ignoring incentives, markets, and reality. Because money is not wealth, production is wealth. And when production dies, no amount of printed paper can bring it back. Venezuela learned that the hard way, and the world would be wise to remember it.